I need a fancy intro of some sort, or some music. I need to come up with something, so I'll also work on that. But for now, here we go.
What the fuck is up, my cats and my kittens? And welcome back to another episode of the OVER Sharra Podcast. I am your host, Shara Coley, and today we're going to talk about depression blankets and spiraling, because I've been spiraling since Saturday. Also, obviously, my cats are here, if you're watching this, and I'm still using this shitty little throw mic from the Tux Parade last year, so listen, I am currently working on it. I've been researching and looking up some of the stuff that I would potentially want for my setup. I'm just trying to make some decisions and things like that, so yeah, an actual better mic, because again, I told you, I bought mics, but for some reason, I can't get it to work with this specific app. So I'm working on just getting a setup. Anyways, so they love this cord, so they will probably make some additional appearances. Anyhow, just the crazy old cat lady over here always talking about our cats. True story though, I really do love coming home to my cats. I was spiraling on the way home from work today. I was completely crashing out in my car. It's fine. I'm also only in like 3 hours of sleep because I worked inventory last night and then couldn't fall asleep until 2:15 in the morning because I'm on steroids, and that's what it does to me. So anyways, yeah, I've been having a couple of days, but every time that I come home, literally every time before I get into my house, this is why pets are so awesome and why I'm so glad I got my cats, because they really truly do help so much with depression and anxiety. And every time before I come home, I'm in my car and I just go, cats. Like, I just get excited. And then when I open the door, I'm just like, cats. And Shrimps always comes like running like a dog up to me, and it's so cute. I love being greeted by them. They're just my favorite little buds. Can't suggest pets enough for emotional support, especially if you're somebody who struggles with any sort of depression or anxiety. They truly are just the best little babies. Although it is really sad that they die, but we all die. This little guy here is a sucker for a chin scratch. Like, he will go, if he gets over here, like, he will just go for it. He, like, a whole body will just fall over on the ground because he's so into the chin scratch. Anywho, so yeah, welcome to my bed today. Full transparency, it kind of looks like I'm ready to record a porno in here, which turns me on a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. That is actually one of my biggest, I would say, like, top fantasies. Not to like make a porno with, like, in general, make a porno or make a porno with like a stranger. I'm talking about, like, I want a like professional grade video of me and my future partner. Like, this is what I imagine, that we have a porno made of us, whether somebody's recording it. I haven't thought too much into the details beyond that. I just want it to be a good videos of us, of me, having sex and or doing things, because yeah, I do not watch porn. Like, I've never been a porn watcher. It's not my thing. I'm just not a porn watcher. So, no lie. There's been men who are like, oh, that's lying. No, I really don't watch porn. If I'm going to watch a porn, I don't really, like, I will watch a porn, I guess, if like a guy wanted to watch one and we wanted to watch it together or whatever, like, sure. But I'm not researching porn. I'm not going on Pornhub.com and searching, comes on girl's face. But if there were a video of him coming on my face, well, that's a different story. I would definitely watch that. Like, I don't know what that says about me, but when I want to, like, if I'm putting on porn, it's of me. It's of me and someone that I have, the two people I've ever had a video with. Is it two people? Yeah, two people. Anyways, but yeah, I'm watching myself. I'm looking at my own nudes. Like, I like looking at my own nudes. It's hot. Like, I think that it just, like, it puts me in the moment, because it's like, oh, like, it's a little spicy when you're doing it. Like, you feel sexy and turned on. And like most of the times, and I finished myself off, and yeah, I had a great time doing it. Like, I think there's something like very sensual and sexual about that. And that's my truth. I don't watch porn unless it's of me. So yeah, if anybody were to walk into my bedroom right now, it looks like I'm ripping and roaring and ready to go. So saddle up, partner. All right. Let's get back into it. So yeah, my idea was that I wanted to lay in the bed in here and record, but because of my equipment situation, I can only be at cord's length. So we're confined to this. We're here. So welcome into bed with me. It's good to have you. I've got my lady boxers on. I've got a tank top that really, is letting the girls free here. Covered up by my comfort blanket and my comfort hat. I am obsessed with this hat. Obviously, like, I've recorded so many things or taken pictures of this. I bought this for a little beach getaway not too long ago because it was supposed to be kind of chilly, but like a little bit cold, but not too cold. And I was like, oh, I want to be on the hot tub and be on the beach in the sun and like an oversized sweatshirt with my little thong bikini on. Be a cute little moment. And the moment I put this hat on, I was like, this is it. This is my alter ego. This is, Cher, from Cher from Clueless. Like, it's the Clueless hat. It is giving. I'm typically, I guess I do. The kids, what do they call it? Chuggy. Bucket hats are chuggy, but you know what? I will say that the young girlies did compliment my furry bucket hat. They could have been totally pulling a Regina George, and as soon as I walked away, they're like, that's the ugliest fucking bucket hat I've ever seen in my life. But you know what? I fucking love this hat. I don't know what it does for me, but it really just like turns up the spice, and I'm here for it. And then the glasses, well, I told you I've been spiraling since Saturday, and I have also only on 3 hours of sleep. And yeah, so there's a lot going on under here that we just need to hide it under there. Also, earlier I was trying to record, and then I started crying, and it's gonna be a wild ride today, guys. Giddy up, let's go. I did also get my handy dandy notebook. This is my journal. And man, nothing like going back and reading a couple posts, like, Jesus Christ, there's some really depressing shit in there. But yeah, I jotted down a couple of things because sometimes I feel like, and especially because I'm not on a lot of sleep, I'm having a lot of anxiety. There's all of these things going on. It's really hard for me to keep my train of thought. I lose my train of thought very easily. So yeah, so functioning, let's just talk about that while I'm on that train of thought. The difficulty of functioning when you have anxiety. So this was actually something that somebody wrote in for one of the topics for Topic Roulette. So very fitting for me to talk about this today. The question was the topic was how to function. And it was also the fun in function was capitalized. So I think it's also like how to have fun and function while having anxiety. So I'll try and talk about both. From my own experience, from some work that I've done on my own, some work that I've experienced in therapy. There's a little like chart that I'm going to go over of this is work I need to also get into because I've been feeling super anxious. Yeah, how I kind of like manage where sometimes don't manage to function with anxiety. And I'm definitely going through a period of time where I am finding it increasingly more difficult to function with anxiety just in like the basic human function. Like I'm going through a bit of a period, and I know that it's because my emotions and everything are heightened because I'm on steroids. And this is why I was really reluctant and hesitant I postponed going on them for a little bit because I was like, man, last year when I went on them, it was just a really, really, really difficult time for me. And while I know that I'm in a better place now mentally to handle it, it still is just, I don't know if you've ever been on steroids for like a long term, but if you haven't, they just can really make your emotions up and down. So it basically feels like at any given moment, that feeling, if you're a woman and you know what it feels like to have the feeling of you're going to start your period, that's what it can feel like just at the drop of a hat. So I imagine this is what it's going to feel like whenever you go through like perimenopause or menopause. So that's going to be a fucking delight. But yeah, so it definitely, if you already struggle with any sort of mental health stuff, depression and anxiety, it just really can heighten them and make it a fucking roller coaster ride. Like, just to give you an example, yesterday I was at work and all of a sudden I was sitting in the office and doing my work, and I just got a complete feeling of like overwhelm. Like I am going to cry. And that's exactly what I did. So I knew it was coming on. It was one of those things where I was, trying to use some of the coping techniques that I have of, some breathing and getting up, taking a walk, just a couple of little exercises that I've learned can help de-escalate me in those situations. But there are some times, especially when I'm being influenced and enhanced by a medication, that there are times I just can't control it. And so the thing that I did was I just got my keys and I took my lunch/dinner break and went out to my car and I just cried in private. And I was like, I feel insane right now because it's not like anything happened. I'm just out here fucking crying, literally feeling so overwhelmed. But yeah, so it can make me a bit all over the place. So yeah, it's really, really difficult because I get frustrated sometimes because I'm like, how do you or I function when I'm feeling this way? Because again, like I'm somebody who I would describe and who others would describe me as like very self-aware. Like I, put a lot of time and real effort into managing to the best of my ability. And I'm not perfect at it, but because I know that anxiety is a big trigger for my symptoms, and anxiety is it's not good to live in a constant state of anxiety. And I know from doing more research and reading things, and zero doubt in my mind that the reason I even developed Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis in the first place is because I've just lived with such high anxiety and depression my whole life that it quite literally changes you at the cellular level. And so it directly impacts your gut biome, and your brain and your gut biome are so connected. And so it just makes complete sense that for so much of my life where in looking back and understanding it now more as an adult of everything that happened and what it means to not remember, and dissociation and living in fight or flight and all of these different things, like I just understand that I lived in a very elevated state of cortisol levels, and it just changes you cellularly over time. And it's proven, there are so many scientific studies and research that's been done on showing how that leads to things like autoimmune diseases, specifically and most commonly irritable bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, IBS, etc., like all those types of things. But it's frustrating sometimes because society is not, at least our now modern society is not set up to allow for us to truly function or not function when we're going through this. It blows my mind sometimes how anyone is a mom or a parent, but specifically more of a mom, because I just cannot comprehend feeling the way that I feel sometimes. And again, I get it when it comes down to like, you do it because you have to, like you're responsible for keeping something else alive. I'm not talking about that you're doing something out of like duty, right? That you're doing it out of necessity, because there are some parents who don't show up to the plate, and who don't. So there are just people who have kids and they do it out of duty. But I genuinely have so much curiosity and respect for parents, because when I'm having days where I am really depressed or feeling super anxious and I'm already finding it difficult to just function, and for me, like today, for dinner, I cooked myself a box of mac and cheese, which I guess would be fine for a kid. But I'm just saying that like there are days where like I barely feed myself. I don't have the capacity to like make my fucking bed. And yeah, I just like the other day, or also like this past weekend when I had a migraine for literally 2 days, it took me out. Like I couldn't see out of my fucking left eye barely. And I was just in pain. I was like throwing up from it. How the fuck do you then have to take care of a kid? I'm not meant to have kids. I don't want to have kids. I think my purpose is to be the auntie for other people, like my friends' kids, or, I don't know what that looks like to know, like, I'm sure like the men, as I get older, like there's more and more men who have children and stuff. So like, but I personally don't want to have my own children. I don't want a baby, because I I do struggle sometimes to pull my own self out of, or to pull my own self out from underneath what I call the depression blanket, which is just, it feels sometimes like this weight is just on top of you. This blanket, this heavy blanket is just laying on top of you. And even though you're having anxiety, I'm having anxiety about, what I should be doing, what I could be doing, or anything, like things I want to be doing, maybe, that I just can't. I'm just frozen. I'm just paralyzed. And all I can do is remain there and fucking spiral. And again, like, I have gone to therapy, but I have all these tools and I do all these things, and I still have my days. I still have my times, especially right now while I'm on these steroids. Like, I just have my times where it's just, man, it feels so much harder to deal. So functioning with it, it's quite frustrating, especially like I find it so hard to pay attention at work, like to really like focus at work, which is also causing me a bit of stress because my job is very focused work. Like, it's very, especially when I'm writing a schedule and I have 45 people or 48 people on the schedule to put on, and I mean it's a huge task, and it's work that I think my brain works very well at that type of work, but it's also a major struggle sometimes because I find it very, very difficult to concentrate or to stay in like today, I was just really finding it difficult to stay in good streams of thought just because I was so sleep deprived. And yeah, it's just like, and then it takes me twice as long to complete my work. Like, I worked an 11-hour day today, and I'm supposed to be off for the next 4 days. And, I'm definitely going to have to go in and do a little bit more work just because I have to get it done. And, it's times like this where it's like, this is what's so difficult about having to function in society sometimes, because it's just like, man, when you can't even like bring yourself to concentrate fully, or sometimes I find myself dissociating in the moment. I'm like, it's like I black out for a second. I'm like, oh, fuck, what the fuck was I doing? Why am I here? What, huh? And that just is, it's signaling to me that there's stress and anxiety. So right now, I know that these feelings are definitely being amplified by medicine. But what I also know is that in feeling this way, there's a couple of options that I have and a couple of things that I know I have to pay attention to and that I can do for myself when I'm feeling extra anxious. One of those things is doing an assessment, which is what I'm going to bring out right here. So I did this, I was looking at this. I keep this on my desk just as kind of like a little bit of a reminder. It's actually written on a notepad from when my friend Brandy stayed with me in the hospital, and she was just the best angel. She was like the person taking notes. So it's still on that piece of paper. Anyways, I did this with my therapist. The date on this is January 2nd of 2024. So I'm definitely due for this reevaluation. I really should be more committed to doing this more frequently. But I haven't really felt like in a state of super distress until recently. So I guess it hasn't like really triggered me to like go back to this and re-rate these things. So what is important in what times of anxiety, or what anxiety can tell you, because anxiety can be good, right? Anxiety doesn't have to be always like viewed as this bad thing. Like, anxiety can be a good motivator, and anxiety is a good indicator. It's almost like it's like one of the lights coming on in your car or something like that, or it's like a little light coming on of like, hey, pay attention to me. And anxiety can also present in different ways. There can be positive anxiety. There can be negative anxiety. Like when you get anxiety about a first date, like that can be positive anxiety. That's butterflies, right? That's the unknown. Or like if you have an exciting new job interview or something like that, like anxiety can be a good motivator, but it can also be really detrimental as well. And I think being able to identify the physical triggers that your anxiety is giving you, because if you actually slow down and pay attention, your body is going to tell you a lot of is it actually anxiety? Is it butterflies? And being able to name it a little bit more of like, okay, is this sadness, or is this sadness, or is this rejection? Is this disappointment, elation? Like, your body has certain physical triggers that you can pay attention to. So my physical trigger that I have to pay attention to, that is a negative physical trigger for me, is when I am in a state of like elevated anxiety, or it's basically just like my cortisol levels are elevated and I'm in a heightened state of fight or flight, that it feels like my heart is like up here and like stuck in my throat, and I can just feel it going like this. And sometimes I'll even get like these little like patches of like red rashes. It can physically present for me sometimes. So when I start feeling that way, it is a trigger for me to take inventory of, okay, something is out of alignment with my values. That's what this is telling me. So I think that's a really, really good place to start, is being able to say, okay, pause. What's out of alignment? What's not matching? What in my daily life right now is not matching what brings me joy, or what feels important to me, or what I'm working towards? Like, something is out of alignment. And I think that's the first place. So that's a little bit of what this exercise can go back to. And yeah, I think that's also, if you don't know the answers to those questions of like, what are your values? Like, what things are important to you? What things do bring you joy? What things do you see for or want for yourself in the future? I think you got to start there, because if you don't know what you stand for, or what is important to you, you can't possibly know how to prioritize the daily actions that are associated with how those values show up in your life. So for those not watching, this picture here it's just a circle it's like a little pie chart, and it's divided up into 8. And you can see on here, I only wrote down 7, but I'm pretty sure the 8th one on here is spiritual health. So I'll name all of these for each little piece of the chart. And the idea is that you go through each of these pillars, which are, for most people, related to a value or, something in their life. And you go through and you rate it. And the idea is that if anything is on the lower end, you identify, okay, is this on the lower end and it needs improvement, or is this on the lower end because this just isn't at the top of my focus list right now? The 8 pillars or pieces of this pie are financial health, romantic relationships, friendships and social life, physical health, mental health, professional life, living space. And again, I left this one blank, but I'm pretty sure it was spiritual health. So if it wasn't spiritual health, it is now. That's what I'm saying. Okay. And so you go through, and on a scale of 1 to 10, you rate how each of those pieces of the pie feel to you in this moment. Whenever you are rating each piece, that's when you can say, okay, is this low because I need to pay attention to this, and I need to evaluate what actions are associated with this piece of my life, and what values are associated with this, what means something to me in these areas? Or is it because it's just not that high of a priority for me right now? So I'm feeling pretty neutral about it. I don't have a strong positive or negative feeling about it. So I'm not rating it high, nor am I rating it low. I'm a neutral. I'm right in the middle, maybe slightly higher, It's like on those surveys where you see agree, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, neutral. The neutral would have been in the middle. You know what I mean? So once you go through that, and you rate each one of those, then you can start dissecting a little bit of, okay, what actions are associated with each of these that I'm either in inaction with, or that I'm consistent, and this is supporting me feeling like this area of my life is doing well. So like on this, one of the under living space, I would say that for me right now, my living space, I would rate on the lower end, just because, again, when I'm going through a period of elevated depression or anxiety, like cleaning up, and it's not that I'm like dirty. It's just like I'm definitely messier than I typically am, because I'm typically a pretty like well-kept person. Like when I'm not going through a bit of an episode, I typically make my bed every day. I put my laundry away like pretty much as soon as I do it. Like I'll leave my hanging clothes, like the clothes that I don't dry, out for a couple of days just because they're drying on the clothes rack, and then but like for the most part, like I'm don't leave dishes in the sink. And so my living space is typically a clear indicator to me of my mental space. When I notice that I'm being less tidy than normal, I'm not cleaning as much, I will allow dishes to be in my sink. And so, yeah, so living space too, that, I mean, talking about having to function with anxiety, your living space is so important to feeling mentally calm, or just feeling like physically calm as well. And having a space that makes you feel at ease and makes you feel safe and makes you feel like your home space is very, very important. So if that's something that is, not being kept up with, and I say this for myself, that's an area too where that it's an easy thing to forego, but it's also an easy thing to fix. And I say that because I haven't been perfect with it here recently, but something that I listened to recently was Mel Robbins was on one of the Dear Chelsea episodes with Chelsea Handler. And she was talking about, she has this like method, and I can't remember if it's exactly called the 5-second method, but essentially what she talks about is that it takes 5 seconds to basically talk yourself out of, or talk yourself into, that doing the thing that you want to do, that you should do, that thing that's going to actually bring you more peace and bring you more calm, or support you in elevating these pillars of your life, and elevating and getting you out of a rut and getting you out of a hole, is that like 5 seconds. That's what it takes to get into your feelings and decide based on how you're feeling, based just on making the decision. So one of the examples that she used that I've been using here lately is with the snooze button. I am a serial snoozer. Like it has gotten so bad over the past year, and excuse me, I've had a really nasty sinus infection and respiratory infection. I'm pretty sure that's also like part of what contributed to my migraine. So if you hear me coughing or sound congested, nasally, I've been sick. But yeah, so she just talks about, she uses the example of the snooze button, in that whenever the alarm goes off, 5 seconds, you lay in bed for 5 seconds instead of turning your alarm and get off. And that is the time that you can then think about how you're feeling and change your mind. And instead of getting up when your alarm goes off. And here's the thing, I know that snoozing is so bad. I've recently even read more about it. The snoozing is absolutely terrible for you. It does not, I know that you think like, oh, 5 more minutes of sleep. It is not 5 more minutes of sleep. It actually does damage. It's not positive at all. So I've really this is one thing that I'm really trying to work on. And ever since hearing her on this podcast, today was actually the first day that I really actually snoozed. And that was because I was only on 3 hours of sleep. And I was like, holy shit, it's already time. So, but yeah, 5 seconds. It gives you the time to think about, oh, I want to be in this warm, cozy bed. Oh, I don't want to face the day. Oh, it's cold out there, like whatever it is, to change your mind versus just doing the thing, or just, talking yourself out. So I've just been trying to apply that method to these certain areas. And I think that's like something that I can do better tomorrow is, okay, my living space in the 5 seconds, instead of being like, nope, I'm going to leave that there. It's do it now. And like, it's going to clear up so much space, because if you're anything like me, yeah, in the moment, you're like, I don't feel like doing it. I just want to go shut down. I just want to go dissociate on my couch and just like block out the fucking world. That doesn't actually do anything productive for you. It doesn't do anything productive for me. If anything, it makes me spiral even worse. And it's just like I'm putting off. It's like I'm saving extra anxiety for later. And I'm just building it up for myself. So yeah, if that, sharing that, I heard that recently. So 5 seconds, try and implement that of, if there's things where you're like, man, like in those 5 seconds, could I just make a different decision? Can I just make the decision instead of thinking about how I'm feeling in the moment? Because again, why I'm an absolute advocate and proponent for feeling your feels and feeling your emotions. Sometimes our feelings can be little fuckers. Like they can really just lead us on a roller fucking coaster and lead us in directions that don't really serve us and tell us a lot of lies and take us in directions we don't need or want to go and don't have to go. And so those little fuckers can just get right on out here. But yeah, so instead of just like thinking about how you feel, and again, not saying don't consider your feelings sometimes, because sometimes your feelings are very valid. A lot of times your feelings are valid, but sometimes they're just little fuckers. So 5 seconds, make the decision. I'm going to try and do better. I hope you can try and do better. So that's one thing that I think is important for how to function with anxiety. Another thing that I think can also help, and this is a bit of a taboo topic, is medicine. And I am not afraid to admit that I take medicine. I take Lexapro, and I take another medicine called, I think they call it Buspar. It's an anxiety medicine. I've recently got put on that one because, again, I was going through this period of time where I have all these tools. I'm a very self-aware person. I have gone to therapy. I know the techniques. I have the arsenal available to me to tap into, and sometimes it's just not enough. Sometimes I need help. I have depression and anxiety runs in my family. Depression more so than anxiety. I think I'm probably the most anxious person of my family, but this also goes back to how I was raised and all these things. Like, it's not necessarily my fault, you know. I'm just an anxious person, so I have to learn how to cope with it, and that sometimes mean admitting that I need a little extra help, and that's what I want to offer here. Is, you know, I think that for me, I went back on medicine last year whenever I was in the hospital. The second time that I was in the hospital, I had a full fucking mental breakdown. I think last year was probably one of the lowest. I've definitely had some very low, lonely, depressive, scary, mentally scary times in my life, but I think last year was one of the lowest that I've been all around. From like my physical health was just as bad off as my mental health. And I felt completely out of control. Again, the steroids were definitely, I mean, I was on like IV, high dose IV steroids. So like even worse than the oral steroids are. So I just felt like a fucking basket case. And the second time that I was admitted to the hospital, man, I just remember that I didn't lift the shade the entire time that I was there that week. I didn't turn the TV on. I think 3 people came to visit me the entire week that I was there. And for the rest of it, like, I laid there in silence. Like, and there was this one day that I just had a complete fucking mental breakdown to the point where I had to request a sedative because I couldn't calm down. And yeah, so they gave me some Klonopin. And it was in that moment that I just had to finally admit, like, I need help. Like, I need help, not only, you know, from my friends and my support system, but I need help from medicine because I can't do this on my own. Like, there's just too much else. Even though I have all of the tools, I need help. I need that extra lift. And, you know, like I said, depression and anxiety runs in my family. So I've been on medication before. This is something that I've struggled with my entire life. Like, in looking back on my life, it makes so much sense as an adult that I've, you know, learned a lot about these things that I can look back and say, I understand now why I look back on my childhood and all I really remember is I remember these, it's like I can feel it in my gut. It's like these deep pitted moments of sadness. Like, I just remember being sad. I was a sad fucking kid. I remember being in high school and be like, I'm never going to smile again. And from the outside looking in, nobody would have ever thought that. Like, it was such a surprise. And I feel like sometimes it is a surprise to people when I tell them that I have, you know, high anxiety, that I feel like would probably perceive me as being more extroverted. That is not true. While I can be, and I am extroverted in the sense of like, I can talk to anybody. I'm not scared to talk to anybody. Like, interacting with people doesn't scare me. I do not recharge around people. I am extremely introverted. I do talk and I share openly, but I'm also a very lone wolf individual is definitely how I would describe myself. I'm very independent, and up until this past year, I would say most often in my life, I've dealt with things in an isolated manner. It's not that I've leaned on others to support me through things. It's just like, oh, I'll get through it. And yeah, throughout my life, I feel like I've been classified and labeled as like a very strong person, and it's not true. I am a strong person and I am a resilient person. That's something that I've had to learn, but I'm also inside, it's like, there have been times where like, man, I feel like a fraud. I feel like, the outside world says, oh, you're so strong, and it's like, felt like this obligation. Like I've had to like be strong and And then I had to get to this place where it's like, nobody's bringing me a fucking award for carrying all of this struggle and all of this on my own. Like there's no award that I want to even win. There's no crown or trophy that I want for the amount of struggle that I can endure. Like I'm a human. I have a very human experience. We all have a very human experience. And while it's very different, like we all experience very similar emotions. And yeah, I am a strong person, but I also have very, very low, very dark, and very, what I have in the past considered weak moments. And so I just want to offer that of like, yeah, if you don't know me very well, and even people who do know me well, like I still have this very sensitive part of me, and I have this very, real and raw part of me of like, I have depression, I have anxiety, and I'm on medicine for it. And I went on medicine whenever I was in college, and then I got off of it whenever I was late 20s, kind of by force and then by choice. And then just was like, oh, well, I've done without it and I'm doing fine. But then whenever I was going through everything last year, I was like, and again, when I look back on it too, I'm like, yeah, I was managing to a certain extent, but like, I think that I really always should have been on medicine. I have a chemical imbalance. It's very clear to me. And medicine helps. It just gives me, I'm not on a high dose or anything, but even if you have to be on a high dose, like that sometimes you just can't control. And I think that there's just a stigma around going on medicine, that it's going to like turn you into a zombie. Do I seem like a fucking zombie? No, I'm a little fucking weird, but I'm not a zombie. Doesn't like Lexapro. I would say that I've enjoyed Lexapro more than I've enjoyed Prozac. I don't feel like a zombie on it. I don't feel like it changes who I am. I will say that there was a little bit of time at the very beginning of when I had it where I was like, why the fuck can I not have an orgasm? What kind of voodoo witch shit is this? I'm having to trade in happiness for my fucking like ability to come. What the fuck? But that came back. No worries. Granted, I do have probably one of the highest sex drives of anybody I've ever met, so I can't say the same for you. I would say that is the one downfall of it. But listen, if you have a high sex drive, it'll go away for a little bit, but just keep working at it. Just keep working it out. It'll come. Pun intended. So at first I was like, what the fuck? Like, why can't I come? And maybe it is why, it takes me a little, I guess I do notice it takes me a little longer to have an orgasm, but you know what? On the day to day, I'm still having orgasms, I'm still getting myself off. I'm doing just fine. So, moving on. So how to function with anxiety. Doing some exercises, some breath work is also really great. I love box breathing. It's just like a 4 count in, 4 count out type of, or in a hold. Like there's different kinds of breathing exercises that you can do. That really helps me whenever I'm feeling that like, oh, like my heart, like I know that that's when I need to tap into my breathing, or I can, make sure that I place my feet on the ground, or I go for a walk, or I do something that brings a little bit of calming aspect to it. And then again, I also have to pay attention to other triggers and stressors. So when I'm going through a bout of feeling a little bit more depressed or feeling a little bit more anxious, there's also some things that I have to realize that just don't serve me in that moment. Like really going out and partying and drinking, like while it's fun in the moment, it fucks me up for days afterwards mentally. Like I can really spiral. Like that definitely happened to me after this past weekend when I got my migraine, because at first I thought I was just hungover, and I'm sure I was just a little bit hungover on Saturday, but like legit I really didn't drink that much. I went out on Friday. I made myself a margarita while I was getting ready, and like had that while I was getting ready and on the way there. So over the course of like an hour and a half, and then got there, had another margarita. Over the course of 5.5 to 6 hours, I had 3 drinks. Like I did not drink that much. I switched to water, so it's just like at first I thought I was just hungover. And again, I'm sure there was because I stayed up a little bit late. So again, while I wasn't drinking, like sleep and all these kind of things, but then it induced a migraine. And I know that I've just been having stress. So I'm sure my anxiety also induced. I actually learned a lot about headaches this week. So I'm in physical therapy for my ankle for when I fell at work a few months ago. And I went in and my physical therapist was just asking me how I was doing. And I mentioned how over the weekend I had a 2-day migraine that basically like took me the fuck out and was so miserable. Couldn't see out of my left eye. And apparently he specializes in understanding different types of migraines and things. And FYI, certain types of migraines you can get physical therapy for. So if you didn't know that, now you do, because I didn't know that, and now you do. So he was actually doing some exercises with me because he called it, there's different kinds, and I do not remember the exact terminology, but the one that he was describing is like a ram horn migraine, where the migraine sits behind your eye, but then it feels like it goes like to the back of your head and down. And a lot of times that can come from like musculoskeletal things where it's like you have some sort of like limitation in some of like your rotation, or like there's some muscle tension or something like that. So you can go to physical therapy for that. So I'm starting physical therapy for migraines because I have not struggled with migraines until about the past 6 months. And he did ask me a very interesting question. I didn't like think about this, but he asked me if anything had with my job had changed, like if I'm, sitting more or a different posture, like different movements. And it's true. Like over the past 6 months, I took on a new role at work where I sit behind a computer way more than I did before, since a lot of my job is on the back end of things. And so, yeah, your position of like the angles of your monitor screen and the distance of like your keyboard and your chair. And because I'm short, like I need something I need basically like a footrest underneath my feet. He gave me this printout. I'll have to like post a little picture of it. And so yeah, he gave me this like little chart of how to set up my workstation to better promote posture, because that can contribute to some migraines. But yeah, I've just never really struggled with migraines until the last 6 months. But now when I get them, they just like, they take me the fuck out. And so gonna do that. And I'm also convinced that the migraines are coming from this being on steroids, or potentially coming from like my Remicade, which is the infusions that I get every 6 weeks, because I mean, I'm sure it's a mixture of things, but it just seems all too connected that like I've never struggled with these. And all of a sudden this past year, I've started struggling with migraines. And I've read that, symptom withdrawal from steroids can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So I don't know. I'm convinced that some of the drugs are contributing to it as well. I'm sure it's not helping. And so I've been going to the chiropractor to get adjustments, because it feels a lot of times like it's like neck. And so, yeah, he was telling me about different types of migraines. So I learned something new this week. Fuck, what was I talking about? So I just have to like, take inventory of like, yes, while I could enjoy going out and enjoy and doing that in the moment, the days following and the times following just aren't quite worth it. Like, I know that, again, like, I think I was a little bit hungover on Saturday, but then on Sunday, it was definitely like, I just had a migraine. Also, like, I've been sick. I think there were just like a lot of factors. I've been stressed. But I have to recognize too that like, drinking and doing those things, it doesn't support me in these times. It doesn't, while again, yes, I'm having fun in the moment, it's causing me anxiety afterwards. It's not worth it. So yeah, right now I am going to go through a period of California sobriety, so to speak. I just think that not having alcohol, which I think is going to be, a little bit difficult, because I'm not one of those people. I don't think I have any sort of like drinking. I don't really drink that much. But I do enjoy cocktails. I do enjoy the social aspect of drinking. I've always enjoyed, I like the way wine and margaritas and things like that taste. And I think that I just enjoy having a cocktail sometimes, but I also have to recognize that right now, I just don't think from a physical or a mental space that alcohol and partying and anything like that is really supportive of what I should be doing, which is hard because, again, we're in Mardi Gras season. I think what's been cool though is, I do have some friends who are supportive of, hey, like I'll not drink with you or something like that, which is cool to have, because I think it's harder when not, and I tend to isolate in those moments. But so just taking inventory of that too, of like, okay, are there things that, I'm participating in that seem fun, but they're not actually conducive for true health and true peace and true stability in this particular moment. It doesn't mean that it's forever. It doesn't mean I'm never going to drink again or anything like that. Like that's absolutely not true. But I just think for right now, I think just being a little bit more clear-headed. Also, I have other stuff that I want to focus on and that I'm interested in pursuing. So I think just having a little bit more time to like not have days where I'm wanting to just rot in bed or like don't have the mental clarity. Also, like, again, I'm having issues with like concentration. So alcohol doesn't support that. It's terrible for your sleep. Like, it's just all these things. There's so many reasons why I'm just going to go through a little period of sobriety from alcohol and just see how that helps. So like my mom got me a sewing machine for Christmas. So I wrote that down as we did this like little like goals and vision thing today to start the day at work. And so it just kind of, got me thinking about a couple of things that I am interested in doing this year. Obviously, this is one of those things. I was actually in the bathroom, literally fucking talking to myself. Like that's the thing that I've noticed about myself is that I know that I'm not going to say, does anybody else do this? I'm sure there are other people who do it. I don't know how common it is, but I have fucking conversations with myself. Like there are times where I'm like, sure, you're just like talking to yourself in the shower or in the mirror, and I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to? Just the other person in your head. I did read that not everyone has like internal dialogue, which I find very strange because I feel like mine never shuts the fuck up. It's just like constantly going in there. But again, high anxiety. But yeah, so I was just, and I was talking to myself, and I think it was just abundantly clear to me that this is such a therapeutic platform for me to do this. Like I'm a journaler and things like that, but I think that this is just a little bit more in alignment with, it brings me joy and it's giving me at the moment something to focus on and something to learn and something to do, but not like do in like a, I need a new hobby. Again, like it could just be a hobby, but I think it's giving me something to focus on. And that was like another one of the points of, how to have fun or how to function with anxiety is I think it's also really important to give yourself things to look forward to or to do things that just feel intrinsically supportive of bringing joy to you, or so like having things to look forward to. And it doesn't mean that you have to like be planning these big trips or these big night outs. Like it could be as little as like, I can't wait tomorrow to get up and make myself a waffle breakfast and like, or go, like I loved going to the park. Like I'm so glad that it's like kind of springish weather. Like I can just go sit in the park and be out in the sun, and I would take some crafts out there and craft, and maybe I'll do that. So my mom gave me a sewing machine. So that's something that I'm going to learn how to use, because all the costumes and things that I do, I've always just done by hand and with no real rhyme or reason. I've just like figured out how to make it, and I sew everything by hand. So I think it's going to be cool to learn on an actual machine and either go to like a community sewing class or watch some videos on YouTube or both and learn a new craft and create new things and potentially, make some stuff for myself or like make costumes or, do something with that and like have that a bit of a creative outlet. Also, like my hair is not back in a ponytail at all. I've just like literally shoved it in this hat. So it's like falling down. I'm a fucking mess today. But yeah, so I'm going to learn how to use my sewing machine this year. So I'm excited about that. Maybe I'll start making costumes. And I think that this is just like such a therapeutic outlet, and I'm really enjoying it so far and just learning all about it. Oh, wow. I look fucking ridiculous. It's just this thing that it gives me something to look forward to, instead of coming home and crashing out on my couch and dissociating. I hop on here and I think of ideas and I talk and I share, and well, it helps me. So hopefully it helps somebody else there. But yeah, those are just a couple of things, and or a handful of things to help with anxiety. And the first place again, I think, is just it's some self evaluation and getting some vulnerability there, and feeling like you got to ask for support, because we need it. Again, nobody's bringing anybody trophies and awards for how much struggle and how much pain we can all endure. Life is hard enough, and there's always something happening. Life is never going to be in like a perfect season. There's always something. So I think that just that's my spiel on depression and anxiety. All right, let's move on. Okay, that's enough for today. it looks like a porno in here. I'm going to turn these lights off and I'm going to go snuggle on the couch now and hang out with my cats. All right, y'all. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Cue outro music. Ba 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 ba.